Pearson's garage says you're having your car serviced for a long trip. Like back to New York?
Is that right, Wyman?
How about a farewell drink?
No, sir, we had about enough to drink with you. Back when you were supposed to be advance man for this big manufacturing company that wanted to start a plant down here. I mean, before we found out you was making jackasses out of it.
Well, now, in what way?
In the way that you don't work for no company. We found out you was a writer of books. You was planning to write a book about us, Blackwater County.
You got enough nerve to tell us what you're going to write about?
Study of the power structure down here. Who benefits, who suffers. And what the chances are that Blackwater County will ever join the 20th century.
Mr. Wyman, we knowed a week ago you was planning to leave here. Only thing we didn't know was exactly when you was planning to leave so we could give you a right nice send-off. Well, you're gonna get it. Right now.
Oh, wait, what's the trouble, Mr. Wyman?
Sheriff Carrillo, there's not going to be the slightest bit of trouble. If you'll see to it I get my car on the other side of town at Pearson's garage and over the county line without being followed.
Well, what are you so worried about?
I'm worried about getting my head bashed in by them.
Let me get something straight, Mr. Wyman. When you say them, who do you mean? You mean Mr. Flowers and Mr. Gocho here, Mr. Sims? Now, a man make a charge like that against these fellas, he's got to be either drunk or stupid. I know a big book writer from New York can be stupid. Are you drunk?
Sheriff, don't be ridiculous.
I'll tell you what, would you walk a straight line for me?
Look, I just want to get out
Come
away
on
from
over,
here.
Mr. Wyman, just walk a line for me. Come on over. Here, go to the bar. Walk this. See this board right here? Just walk that board right down to me, all right? If you don't mind. Mr. Wyman, I said please. Looks a little drunk to me.
Look, can't I just get out of town?
Just walk the line for me, please, Mr. Wyman. Come on now. Disorderly, too, isn't that a shame? Mr. Wyman, sir, you're drunk and disorderly. I place you under arrest.
Judd, for the defense. Judd for the Defense is brought to you by...
Sworn statements that Dennis Wyman was taken from the cafe to the local jail.
And this is the man I'm supposed to defend?
Let me put it this way, Clint. Your name is on that committee of your own free will. Nobody twisted your arm.
Much.
Regardless, we make our services available on request to all cases involving federal civil rights statutes. This is apparently such a case. A request was made. Your name is next on the list. And what's more, you pay your own plane fare.
Ed, must I leave my entire practice in the hands of my junior associate and go off to a place called Blackwater County?
Blackwater County.
To defend a man against a charge of being drunk and disorderly?
No, there's more to it than that. If Dennis Wyman had been sent down there by a newspaper, not to mention a civil rights organization, there would have been a lot of publicity. But as an obscure freelance writer, no real attention was paid. All we know is he was allowed one call from the jail. He made that call to a local school teacher, a young lady named Erica Cosby.
Where is he? Where is he, Willa?
Back there.
Lonnie, I came from Mr. Wyman.
Yo, you just sit down and talk to you. I sure hope it's hot this time, Willie.
Ought to be. I ran all the way just to please you, honey.
You did? Well, you just keep the change for that. There you go. Good night, honey.
Lonnie, where's Mr.
All right,
Wyman?
now you just sit down there and keep quiet.
I warned you, if you
I said
haven't...
keep quiet. Now, you listen to me. Next time one of your liberal friends comes down here spying on how much trouble he can make, you just better tell me about it right quick.
So you can do what?
I'll run him out of town so fast it'll make his head spin.
What law did Mr. Wyman break, Lonnie?
The law about keeping the peace. Erica, don't you realize that if there'd been trouble, that man had got hurt, don't you realize that at least been partially your fault?
Oh, make it all my fault. And Mr. Wyman's. Not your friends, Mr. Gotro and Flowers and the rest of the rednecks. They always keep the peace. As long as they decide who gets to vote and who goes to decent schools. Anybody says otherwise, they should be lynched. But that's our fault, not theirs,
If you
huh?
listen to this pretty girl making noises like a stupid mule.
Lonnie, I know an awful lot of people here don't think that's stupid, although some of them are afraid to say so.
You want some fried chicken?
I want to know what I have to do to get Mr. Wyman out of here, Lonnie.
Not a thing. He is out. I released him a good 15 minutes ago.
You released him? To whom?
Nobody. Just turned him loose.
Why did you arrest him in the first place? So you could hold him till it was dark?
Erica, I arrested him on a charge of D&D. And I released him when his bail was put up. Now, if you didn't want him turned loose after dark, why don't you put up his bail?
Who says I put it up?
Oh, it had to be you, Erica. He didn't have the $100 cash. Who else out there had sent it in for him?
I didn't send the money. I brought it with me now.
Erica, what are you so worried about?
If anything happens to Mr. Wyman,
Honey, this isn't some lynch law neck of the piney woods. This is Blackwater County, Lonnie Quirito, sheriff. Believe me, nothing's going to happen to that man.
Now, what we have here is allegedly one Dennis Wyman, deceased. Can anyone identify him positively?
I can identify him.
Oh, well, that's fine, Erica, that's fine. Tell us, how did you know him?
I met him in New York and several times here.
Gentlemen, I think we can all take our seats now. Now, anyone who intends to give testimony at this inquest will kindly raise their right hand and swear to tell the truth, so help you God, and kindly say, I do.
I do.
Mr. Buell, are you going to hold your inquest right here, now?
Yes, ma'am, but you do not have to stay for it. Now, Dr. Diggle, would you kindly state whether you have examined this body and determined the cause of death?
I have, yes. Death was caused by a fracture of the cervical vertebra with severing of the spinal cord.
Uh-huh. And were you able to determine how this fatal injury came to be?
Well, as I understand, the district attorney said they found the body at the bottom of Mimosa Quarry.
Well, that's correct. He apparently fell a distance of 65 feet.
And does your examination, doctor, show any indication whether this fall was occurred by accident or foul play?
Well, there were various lesser injuries, contusions, lacerations, but they could have been sustained in the course of such an accidental fall.
No, Mr. Buell. You are not going to call this an accident.
Now, take it calm, honey, because nobody's calling it nothing yet. Now, does the district attorney have any evidence that a crime was committed?
Mr. Coroner, I rely on Sheriff Quirito in this matter. Sheriff has no evidence to the contrary. Is that correct, Lon?
That is correct.
Oh, I don't believe this. Isn't anybody going to say what the whole town knows? That Mr. Wyman was in trouble with a bunch at the Blackwater Cafe, that they threatened him that same afternoon? Mr. Halsey, Mr. Wilson, you go to the town meetings, you talk about progress.
All right now, Erica. Now, if you have anything solid to say, why, you go ahead. Now, what was it you wanted to say, honey?
It's getting awfully cold in here.
Well, here, Erica, take my coat.
No, thank you. You're all fine gentlemen. Just fine.
Right. It is cold in here. Let's get this thing finished.
The decision of this inquest is that the deceased met death by probable accident. There is no reason to believe that a crime was committed. The case is closed.
Then who am I supposed to defend?
Well, as I said, the case received very little publicity. Some items in the regional newspapers, nothing on the national service. Of course, that'll all change with you coming into the picture. The real issue didn't arise until a month later.
Sheriff, my name is Spinner, Alex Spinner. I'm an assistant U.S. attorney, attached to the Attorney General's office in Washington.
Well, I'm glad to meet you, Mr. Spinner. I heard you've been in and out of Blackwater County a lot lately. I was kind of disappointed you didn't get around to see me before this. Hey, go on in, have a seat. Make yourself comfortable.
Thank you.
What can I do for you?
To get to the point, Sheriff, we're interested in the Dennis Wyman case.
Now, what could that little fellow have been up to that didn't arrest the federal government? Tell me, was he moonshining, or did he forget to pay his income tax?
We're interested in Dennis Wyman because he was murdered.
Well, last I heard, the federal government didn't have any law against murder.
Correct. There is no federal law against murder. There are, however, federal statutes guaranteeing civil rights. Any violation of those is a federal crime. Sheriff, I can't think of any clearer way to violate a man's rights, civil or otherwise, than to murder him. Can you?
She sure is something, isn't she? Erica Cosgrove. Makes a little trip up to Washington, she gets the whole U.S. government, just drop whatever else they're doing, come rushing down here, establish a beachhead in little Blackwater County.
Miss Cosgrove isn't the only one who brought this matter to our attention. You'd be surprised to know the number of local citizens who have expressed concern to us.
Yeah, well, tell me, Mr. Spanner, these local citizens, they offer you any proof that Wyman was murdered?
They gave us reason to believe that Flowers, Gautreaux, and Sims were up to their ears in it.
You didn't understand me. I said, Mr. Spinner, they give you any proof.
Well, that is something we hope to get from you.
Wait a minute. You mean to say that if I had the proof, you don't think I'd be out there arresting those fellas?
I'm saying whatever you did or didn't do in the past, you may want to cooperate with us now.
Why would I do that, Mr. Spinner?
Because we have a sworn statement that after you released Wyman, you followed him in your car. Picked him up again and drove off with him in the direction of the quarry.
You tell me who in the world would swear to something ridiculous like that?
Erica Cosgrove. Now, are you inclined to cooperate with us in the matter of Flowers, Gautreaux, et al.?
I'm sorry. I got nothing to say. I didn't say at that coroner's inquest.
All right. These gentlemen are federal marshals.
Sheriff, this is a warrant charging you with violating the civil rights of one Dennis Wyman, deceased. I place you under arrest.
That's the man I'm supposed to defend? Now, look, Ed, I volunteered to defend, well, you know, mistreated civil rights workers, problems like that, but I don't like the idea of defending a man accused of doing the mistreating.
You volunteered for all cases involving civil rights statutes. That means when your name comes up on the list, you go to bat for whoever appeals to it. Whether he's a communist, or a Nazi, or a picket claiming police brutality, or the police officer. So the answer to your question is yes. Sheriff Lonnie Corrito is the man you're supposed to defend. And I might add, whether you like it or not. The prisoner was released from custody at 9:45 p.m. There's an entry to that on the books. That's the last time I saw Dennis Wyman, until his body was found at the bottom of that quarry 36 hours later. Now, how that adds up to a case that I have, the indictment put it, conspired with party or parties unknown to cause the death of Dennis Wyman. I'll never understand that, Mr. Judd, do you?
Well, it's an unusual case in several respects.
Oh, how's that?
For one thing, I don't usually confer with a defendant who's wearing a great big loaded revolver.
See, that shows people's confidence in me. They let me stay in office while I'm out on bail.
And as a rule, I'm on the case because I want to defend the man.
Mr. Judd, tell me something. Why wouldn't you want to defend me?
Because at the very least, I think you're covering up for your friends. Can you look at me with a straight face and tell me that those 3 men had nothing to do with the death of Wyman?
No, sir, I can't. I mean, it certainly figures that they might have got hold of Wyman somehow. But Flowers has got an alibi for every minute of that night. So is Gautreaux, so is Sims. Now, I can't get one witness to open up against them, Mr. Judd. Oh, sure, if I was to play like I could make a case, I'd have that U.S. attorney walking in here thanking me for my cooperation instead of swearing out a warrant against me. But I tell you something. I don't play games with my badge of office, Mr. Judd. No, sir. Also, there's not a jury south of the Mason-Dixon line would convict those men.
Well, do you think that same jury might convict you?
Frankly, no.
Well, then why do you want a lawyer from our committee? Wouldn't you be better off with a local man waving a Confederate flag in front of a local jury?
Well, let's just say I got a reason for not wanting a local man, Mr. Judd.
Well, what is it?
Well, it's like insurance. I mean, now, you can't ever really be sure what a jury's going to do, can you?
Do you know anyone who can testify to your whereabouts on the night in question?
Yes, sir. I got me somebody for every minute of that night.
Don't worry, Mr. Judd. They'll help you get him off.
Who exactly is they?
Bryant, Sloan, Pearson, Sinclair, those are some of his particular buddies. There are a lot of people here who won't have a Washington prosecutor coming down and taking charge. They just won't have it. That kind will perjure themselves, their wives, and their children to fight a civil rights case.
But isn't there also another kind here, like Miss Erica Cosgrove?
Yes, and a slim majority of the school board, which is how I can keep my job.
Suppose I make a promise to this slim majority. I'm committed to giving Lonnie the strongest possible defense, but that does not include subornation of perjury.
Oh, they won't tell you they're lying.
But what if I tell you that I will not present one witness I don't completely believe myself?
Well, Mr. Judd, suppose I almost believe you mean that.
Then tell me what really happened the night Wyman was killed.
All right. I really saw Lonnie pick him up on the highway and drive off toward the quarry.
And where were you at the time?
I was in my car. I was looking for Mr. Wyman. I saw him in my headlights, but the sheriff's car was already there.
By sheriff's car, do you mean a black and white marked car with a red light and all the official trimmings?
No, that's the kind of car the deputies drive. Lonnie uses a plain black, unmarked car with a red light on the inside, behind the windshield, so you don't really notice it unless it's turned on.
How is it you're so familiar with Lonnie's car?
Oh, I used to ride in it one time. It was about a year ago. Well, that's nothing. A lot of girls get to ride in Lonnie's car.
But wasn't it different with you? Weren't you and Lonnie formally engaged?
Well, if he told you that, I can't deny it.
Why did you break it up?
Oh, second thought.
About what?
If you ask Lonnie, he'll tell you I broke off with him on account of his religion.
What about his religion?
Nothing. I'm not a bigot, Mr. Judd. Religion had nothing to do with it.
Just trying to find out if you still have feelings about Lonnie. And you have, haven't you?
I don't think the U.S. attorney would like my discussing this with you any further.
Well, then discuss it with him. Tell Mr. Spinner that you saw Wyman get into a black, unmarked car that could have been Lonnie's, but you can't be sure it was Lonnie's in the dark at that distance. And hating him, Erica. Or still loving him. Which is it?
I don't know. Is this the way you're going to cross-examine me in court?
Unless you decide you can't really identify the man who picked up Wyman that night. Will you think about it, Erica?
Well, now, sir, between one and the other, these fellows didn't tell you where I was every second of that night.
You know it, boy.
David, right.
If Mr. Flowers is here, will he please rise?
Yes, sir. Here I am.
Mr. Guttrow?
Yes, sir?
Mr. Sims? Mind stepping back?
How far?
Oh, about as far as the garbage cans, which is where any testimony of yours belongs.
Oh, no,
Now,
wait.
you don't really have but you step on back there like the man said. Go on. Now, Mr. Judd's my lawyer.
Is Mr. Bryant here? Mr. Sloan? Mr. Pearson?
Yeah.
Mr. Sinclair? Gentlemen, do your friend Lonnie a favor. If your testimony won't stand the closest kind of double-checking, move away from him now. Lonnie, you're in trouble.
Boy, howdy. You sure did pick yourself a lawyer. You did, Lonnie.
Should have picked my cousin Humming like I told you.
Sims, with all due respect to your cousin Humming, I mean, I figure I owe my constituents better than to go out and hire some ignoramus local lawyer on a case that's bound to draw national attention. I mean, how would you like the New York Times to say that the second highest elected official in Blackwater County was handled by Humming Sims? I mean, it's really, for your sake, I got us Clinton Judd.
That's all right, Lonnie. You ain't got no trouble with a local jury sitting on a case.
That jury won't be sitting here. It'll be in Alberta Federal Courthouse.
It's still a southern jury, Mr. Judd.
Which may not be something you can comfortably take for granted, Mr. Flowers. Which may reflect the slowly changing mood in the South. By a slim majority, Erica Cosgrove can teach what she believes in. In the past year, 2 landmark cases where local juries wouldn't convict for murder, federal juries did convict for violation of civil rights, including 1 peace officer sentenced to prison for 10 years. You hear that, Lonnie?
Man, you're my lawyer. I mean, are you or not? I don't... What is it you're trying to prove?
That your friends, if they are your friends, can only help you by telling me the truth. If the truth is in your favor, Lonnie.
My name is Pearson.
Oh, Pearson's Garage. I recognize you. Come in, Mr. Pearson.
I paid attention to what you said in the cafe. And I really would like to help Lonnie. Not only because he sent me wrecking business, but because he's one of the cleanest and best sheriffs that Blackwater County ever had.
Well, how do you feel you can help Lonnie?
Well, I can tell you this. Ned Sims was right near that quarry, pretty close to the time that Wyman fell down into it.
Excuse me. Would you give me Mr. Spinner's room? I don't know the number, but it's right here on this floor. And ask him to step in and see me, please. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Pearson.
So I got a call to come out with the tow truck and start Sims' car. He was stuck in the bypass. So I found it was only a dead battery. I got him started and charged him $3. He says to me, "Here's 10. And don't you say anything." Well, I laughed at him. What do you think I was going to do, tell his wife or something? 2 days later, I got an idea of what he was so worried about when it come out that Wyman got killed not 100 yards away from the spot.
And you didn't say a word to the sheriff? Oh, Mr. Spinner, thank you very much for coming by. This is Mr. Pearson, who has something very interesting to say about Ned Sims.
I know.
Well, then I ask the government, in all fairness to the defense, to put some restraint on Sims' movements.
I already have. Sims came to see me half an hour ago. Seems Mr. Pearson told Mr. Sims that he was going to open up to Mr. Judd. Isn't that right, Mr. Pearson? Mr. Sims then gave me just what I need to convict Lonnie Corrido of murder. In other words, Miss Cosgrove, it is your testimony that although you were aware of various threats and mutterings against Dennis Wyman, you did not imagine that there was an actual conspiracy to do him harm?
No, sir.
And you certainly didn't believe that Sheriff Lonnie Corrido would take part in any such conspiracy.
No, I didn't.
Until, with your own eyes, you saw what you saw on the night Dennis Wyman was killed.
Yes, that is my testimony.
Defense may cross-examine.
Miss Cosgrove,
When you went to Washington, did you tell Mr. Spinner that you were sure that the man who picked up Dennis Wyman on the bypass was Lonnie Carrito and no one else?
Yes.
But recently, didn't you indicate to me that you were not sure?
Well, I guess I did.
And now, suddenly, in this courtroom, you are sure again?
Yes?
Can you possibly explain to the court just what feminine instincts are leading you through this back-and-forth two-step with the next 10 years of the defendant's life?
It is not feminine instinct.
Oh, it has nothing to do with your broken engagement to Lonnie Carrito?
No, it hasn't. It so happens that Ned Sims also saw
Well,
it.
then, wouldn't it be fair to suggest to the jury that they disregard your testimony and wait and see what Ned Sims has to say on the stand, if anything?
Objection!
Sustained.
No further questions.
Your Honor, since our next witness is in protective custody and it takes a few minutes to produce it, would the court grant a brief recess?
May we have the name of the witness?
Willa Glenn.
The court will stand in recess for 15 minutes.
Looks like our brainy friend from Washington isn't so brainy after all. We just might get this whole case thrown right out of court.
No.
Sure, he can't put a surprise witness on the stand he didn't tell us about.
He told me about Willa Glenn. I just didn't tell you.
Mr. Judd, I think they grill out sometimes. I could have told you all kinds of things about her.
And had your friends do all kinds of things to her?
What?
Well, that happens in these parts, doesn't it?
Wait a minute. You think I'd harm a girl? Why are you defending me?
Because you have a right to be defended, and I'm stuck with the job. But I have no right to risk Willa's neck.
What's the good lawyer doing to me? He sends me a lawyer thinks I'm guilty.
You shut up and sit down before the whole courtroom begins to think so, too. If you're not guilty, why worry about what the girl will say?
No, sir, he wasn't drunk. He didn't have but the one drink served to him.
How do you know that Dennis Wyman had only one drink served to him?
Because I was doing the serving. I was the only waitress working in the cafe that night.
Well, then are you saying that the sheriff came in and arrested Wyman for being drunk and disorderly when in fact Wyman was neither?
He wasn't nothing wrong.
Did the sheriff's friends seem pleased, as though Lonnie were holding Wyman for them?
Objection. Sustained.
I'll rephrase the question. Did the sheriff's friends say anything to indicate their attitude?
They said like, good old Lonnie. He ain't about to let Wyman get away from us.
Now, Willa, I direct your attention to other times when you're on duty at the cafe.
Yes, sir?
Did you ever hear any conversation among Flowers, Gautreaux, and Sims, or between any two of them regarding Wyman?
Yes, sir?
Describe the substance of these conversations.
Well, when Mr. Wyman first came to Blackwater, they would talk about he was a good fella, always buying drinks. But in the last week, after they found out he'd been pumping them for all the dirt to write about, then they said he should be taught a good lesson.
Did you hear them say what sort of lesson they had in mind?
Beat him up good. Put him in the hospital.
Did you ever see Sheriff Lonnie sit in on any of these conversations?
Yes, sir? Maybe half the time.
And did he protest? Did he warn his friends against harming Wyman?
No, sir. Lonnie would just laugh it up right along with him.
I thought they was joking. I mean, a sheriff around here go out of his mind if he took all that kind of bragging serious.
In a manner to indicate that he was an active partner in the conspiracy?
Objection. Your Honor, I object most strongly to the government's assumption that there was any conspiracy whatsoever.
Your Honor, another witness has established that bail was put up for Wyman not by himself, not by any friendly person such as Miss Cosgrove, but by person or persons unknown. Now, this enabled the sheriff to release him unescorted into the dark of night. Can anyone doubt that a conspiracy did in fact exist?
Overruled, Mr. Judd. Witness may answer.
Yes, sir. It did look to me as though Lonnie were in on the conspiracy.
Defense may cross-examine.
Your Honor, through a judgment of my own, possibly mistaken, I have not consulted with my client regarding this witness. I will therefore waive at this time and reserve the right to cross-examine later.
Very well. Mr. Spinner, you may call your next witness.
The prosecution calls Ned Sims. On the night that Wyman was killed, did you place a service call to Pearson's garage?
Yes, sir.
For what reason?
Come and get me. I was stuck out on a bypass.
How did you get yourself in that kind of a predicament?
Well, see, around 6 o'clock we was in the cafe, a few of us having a little fun with Wyman.
Just having a little fun, hmm?
Well, we didn't mean no real harm. Anyways, I did. And then the sheriff came in and hauled him off. We stayed on a while, and then we sort of broke up. I went to another place and had some supper and a couple of beers, and it was around 10 o'clock, so I started out for home. And I was driving along the bypass when I saw Lonnie drive by in the opposite direction, and I could see he had Wyman with him.
You were able to recognize both of them in the dark?
Yes, sir, because we were just passing opposite a lit-up diner across the road so that I could see into Lonnie's car, but I don't think he could see into mine. Well, I wondered about it, and so I looked in my rear-view mirror. Now, what do you know if Lonnie's car didn't switch off its lights, so I switch off my lights and make a U-turn and follow him. Just for, well, you know.
The fun of it.
Lonnie drove on about a mile and pulled off the road, so I pulled off. And I saw him take Wyman into the woods, so I went into the woods. They was heading toward the quarry. I was following the noises they was making, and when the noise stopped, well, I stopped. Then I heard some voices. And I could make out Lonnie's. And then I heard different noises, and then a big yell, only wasn't a yell, it was more like a
what?
a scream. And then nothing.
Anybody get his name?
Yeah, I got it here somewhere.
What is it?
Ned Sims.
Hi, Lonnie. Yes, Rick.
I've been waiting for you, Lonnie.
Well, I was out investigating that assault and battery on Ned Sims.
Investigating. Which means, in your language, covering up for Flowers and Guthrow.
Do you think I had them beat up Sims for testifying against me?
Lonnie, there isn't anyone in Blackwater County who doesn't think so. And I would extend that to the Alberta federal jury sitting on your case. I'm waiting here to give you a choice. Either you tell me what really happened between you and Wyman, or get yourself another lawyer.
Mr. Judd, my deputy Driscoll there is a Baptist deacon. He don't drink.
No.
Driscoll, you ever see me drink while wearing a gun?
Yes, I have, Sheriff.
How many drinks you see me drink while wearing a gun?
Only one, Sheriff.
Well, I'm about to have more than one. So you just better take this away from me. Yeah, I expect you better take this, too. I'm suspended until I sober up.
Well, have yourself time, Sheriff.
It's after midnight, Lonnie. I'm closing up.
Fred, listen, I tell you what I'll do. I'll just line up the empties here on the bar. You charge me tomorrow, all right?
Right. Good night, Lonnie.
Yeah, good night. All right, you white Protestant Texan, you think you can drink with me?
Why should I want to?
Well, because I can't tell you the truth dead sober. And if you're sober, you're not going to believe it.
Oh, we still have company.
Hey, Hanson. Hanson. Hey, boy, let's go home. Your wife wants you.
You all the time throw me in jail. Not now.
Come on, let's go, boy. Let's go.
You ain't got no gun. You ain't got no Deputy Driscoll. And you ain't even sheriff now. I'm gonna throw you around one time.
Hanson, you feel like throwing something? Just throw that knife on the floor and going home. pay for. All right, Mr. Judd. You want to know why I arrested Wyman for doing nothing?
Yeah.
It was to get him away from Flowers and the rest of them, because they'd have brained him then and there. And why I picked him up on the overpass after I let him go.
You did pick him up again?
When Erica told me that she didn't put up his bail, I knew they did. They were laying for him. All right. Sure, I picked him up. I got to him first. I drove him out to Route 90, and I told him to wait there. When the Washington bus come by, it'd be an hour. He could get that bus, he could flag it down, he'd be safe. Well, the man didn't believe me. He walked back to the overpass, and they got him.
You're telling me you were really trying to help that man?
Yeah. Now you know why I didn't want a local lawyer. I mean, I figured if things went against me, I'd have to tell... Well, at least I'd have to tell him the truth, and I can't afford to let anybody around here get this on me.
Why were you trying to help him, Lonnie?
Why? I don't know. Beats me.
It was a socially unacceptable thing to do in these parts. A matter of turning against your friends, and yet you did it. You must have had some reason.
Well, I don't... Don't ask me what it was.
I can suggest a reason. Your name, Querido, Spanish.
That's right. Yeah, it means beloved.
Kind of paradoxical, isn't it? Considering that your people were expelled from Spain in
1492, yeah. What about it?
Since then, where haven't they gone? Portugal, Turkey, North Africa, Holland, always facing persecution.
You gonna tell me I don't look it?
Lonnie, I'm going to tell you that no matter how much you drink and raise Cain with the Gautreaux and the Flowers, you've got to be a somewhat different kind of man. A man with at least a vague, deep-down feeling about the persecution of the defenseless. Now, couldn't that be part of the reason?
Hell no. I'll tell you, you talk about my name. You interested in my name? But you'll find my name on all the Civil War monuments. And you talk about my people. You're talking about the Gautreaux and the Flowers. I'm not any different from them.
No, you're not any different. You just had an unexplainable impulse.
It wasn't so I can explain it if I want to. I can explain it. See, I knew all along the way things been going around here. Some northern do-gooder came over here and got himself killed. Man, there's going to be an army of federal lawyers marching in here, making a civil rights case out of this thing. It's open season on peace officers, isn't it? I mean, I knew they'd nail me. Well, I just figured to head off all this trouble.
So you tried to protect Wyman as a matter of practical self-interest.
That's right, practical self-interest.
But why didn't you just... I mean, you're the sheriff. Why didn't you just protect the man openly?
Because the people around here would know.
Well, what of it if they did know?
Because they'd say I did it because I'm a Jew.
Lonnie? Oh, no more for me.
Should have known you couldn't keep up with me.
I can keep up with you in any beverage brewed. Scotch, bourbon, rye, Irish.
I got something you can't keep up with me, huh?
No.
There's a bottle of it down here somewhere. Yes, sir, boy. I got something you can't keep up with me, huh? You got it. Here we go. Let me see you keep up with me in this. Kosher wine.
I think it's a fair question, Mr. Judd.
Mr. Spinner, it's not your question that makes me groan. The answer is no. I can't prove that Lonnie Corrido was actually trying to help Dennis Wyman. But during the course of a rough evening with Lonnie, I became convinced of it. Incidentally, I don't have my client's permission to make this public, so keep it to yourself, will you?
Don't worry, I intend to. Mr. Judd, do you think Corrido tried very hard to pin the murder of Wyman on Flowers and Company? I mean, really tried.
Oh, probably not. He felt he couldn't
crack their alibis.
Mm-hmm. Well, would you ever say he closed his eyes when this type of local redneck ever worked over other outsiders? Roughed up civil rights workers?
Oh, some occasions he probably did look the other way.
Well, then, to me, the question of whether or not Corrido was overcome by kindness on this one occasion seems almost beside the point.
No, I don't buy that.
Well, you don't have to. You're a defense attorney. But I was sent down here by the federal government. Not so much to try and punish one man as to protect the rule of law, Mr. Judd. My job is to convince the lawless element that times have changed.
In other words, you won't join me in a motion for dismissal. You'd rather make that kind of speech to the jury.
Wouldn't you?
Yeah. Sounds very effective.
I hope so.
Lonnie. Lonnie.
I heard.
Well, what do we do? Put you on the stand and have you lay the truth on the line?
No, sir, we do not.
I'd argue, but at this stage of the game, I doubt if the jury would believe you.
Mr. Judd, I don't care whether they'd believe me or not. Now, I told you, I don't want anybody to know.
Lonnie, what are you trying to prove? That you can be re-elected sheriff 2 years from now? If you're not in federal prison?
Do you expect me to take back my testimony?
Nope, you can hardly do that. I'm merely suggesting that since you're probably the only person in Blackwater County who really knew Dennis Wyman, if you were to tell me whatever you could, personal details, anything, I might be able to pick up enough to create another theory of the crime, plant some reasonable doubt. If that sounds desperate, it's because we are.
Why should I?
You were in love with him once.
I thought I was, yes. Back when I persuaded myself that Lonnie was better than his friends. Because of his antecedents, he had to be different. But when we came right down to it, I found out he'd never be happy with me. He's happier with the Willa Glens, the easy girls, and the drinking and the brawling. Because he's nothing but a foul-mouthed, you-all redneck.
That's what you think of him. And that's what Lonnie thinks of himself, but...
After spending a few hours with him, you know better.
Erica, what if I were to tell you that Lonnie picked up Wyman to try and save him?
I would never believe it.
Yes, sir. When they were talking about beating up the man, the sheriff, he was with them.
Laughing it up, Miss Glenn? Well, isn't that what you said in your direct testimony? Quote, Lonnie would laugh it up right along with him?
Well, yes, I said that.
But wouldn't that indicate that the entire conversation was not to be taken seriously?
Didn't they have to be serious to go out and kill the man?
Miss Glenn, was any inducement offered to you for your testimony?
No.
Were any threats made in case you refused to testify?
Mr. Spinner said that I would be subpoenaed, and that if I didn't tell the truth, that would be perjury. I mean, why else do you think I did testify? Wasn't that I wanted to talk against my friends?
Your Honor, excuse me. I have a message for Mr. Judd.
With the court's permission?
Jeffrey just came in and handed me this.
Miss Glenn, were you taking money from Dennis Wyman?
What?
The question is, was Dennis Wyman paying you to keep your ear to the ground and let him know what was going on? Was he paying you, Miss Glenn?
Yes, sir.
And did the U.S. attorney know this?
Yes, Mr. Spinner knew.
And did he tell you what would happen to you if he allowed this information to leak out to some of the rougher elements in town?
Objection.
I'll rephrase it.
He didn't have to tell me. I knew.
And did he then offer to protect you?
Yes, he did.
And after you accepted his protection, did he then go over your testimony with you?
Once or twice.
Or 3 times, or 4 times, or even more?
Well, a little more.
Until he was entirely satisfied that your testimony would link Lonnie Corrido with Flowers, Gautreaux, and Sims?
Objection.
Sustained. No further questions.
Your Honor, I will not have Mr. Judd say that I threatened not to protect this witness unless her testimony satisfied me.
Your Honor, he said it. I didn't. And the jury heard.
Mr. Spinner, your objection has already been sustained. Mr. Judd, you may call your witnesses.
I have no witnesses to call. I will make one motion, and then I will sum up to the jury, and that will be our case.
Very well. Counsel for both sides may approach the bench.
Your Honor, the prosecution witness, Ned Sims, remains in the hospital in no condition to be cross-examined. The effect is to deprive defendant of his right to have this witness cross-examined. I therefore move that the entire testimony of Ned Sims be stricken from the record.
But, Your Honor, there are several...
Mr. Judd, your point is well taken. The motion is granted. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, with respect to the entire testimony of the witness, Ned Sims, I direct you to disregard it.
Which means, ladies and gentlemen, that you must put it completely out of your minds, as though you had never heard it. Also, that you must put the witness himself completely out of your minds, as though he never existed. As though Ned Sims had not been brutally attacked. As though you didn't think the defendant had something to do with it. I assure you Lonnie Corrido had nothing to do with it, but even if he did, you may not hold that against him. Which is a lot to ask of human beings, but then the federal government is always asking us to do superhuman things like pay the present rate of income tax. Ladies and gentlemen, I will not ask you to doubt that Dennis Wyman was murdered. I will not ask you to doubt that 3 men whose names have frequently been mentioned in the course of this trial conspired to do him harm. But how can the prosecution ask you to believe that Lonnie Corrido was a part of that conspiracy beyond any reasonable doubt? There's only the testimony of Willa Glenn, a paid informer for an outsider, dependent on the prosecution for her safety. Is she unbiased? And there is the testimony of Erica Cosgrove, once engaged to marry the defendant. Can she be unbiased? One question remains. You, the jury, are you unbiased? If the answer is no, then my client has nothing to worry about. You will acquit Lonnie Corrido. But what if the answer is yes? Yes, you are decent men and women. You believe that nobody should be tormented, beaten, murdered because of his opinions. Yes, you are a part of the clean wind blowing, sweeping away repression and prejudice. Yes, you believe in the rule of law and not of men. For these very reasons, you must not convict Lonnie Corrido in anger or revenge or even as a warning to the lawless elements among you. Under the very law which you may have a hunger to see triumphant, you must honor the principle of reasonable doubt. And you must find him not guilty.
Ned Sims is dead.
You tell the jury to disregard that.
Will the defendant please rise?
Has the jury reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor.
What is your verdict, Mr. Foreman?
We find the defendant, Lonnie Corrido, not guilty.
Well, Mr. Judd?
Well, I left my fair-sized practice in the hands of my junior associate. I'll be glad to get back.
Are you pleased about the verdict? I mean, the way you did it, you got him off. And all of his constituents can vote for him, even the rednecks.
Hey,
you did it.
Oh, we're glad. Well, I sure thank you, gentlemen. But I advise you not to try to leave the state while I'm investigating what happened to Ned. I might have to bring you back these things.
Lonnie!
Yes, sir.
You were really going after them for the murder of Sims?
Yes, sir, I am.
Then you're not so worried anymore about being a little different from your friends?
Mr. Judd, I'm not any different from my friends. Wyman was an outsider, that's one thing. Ned Sims was a local boy. I see it.